Hey everybody, Jean-Pierre here again. The first question asks, how do social media companies moderate their platforms? I answer, Facebook believes highly subtle content moderation can resolve its tension. As these platforms have grown in size and influence, they've hired content moderators to police their website, first to remove illegal content such as child pornography, and then to enforce rules barring content that could cause users to leave or a PR nightmare. To understand what Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit have rules is worth considering that these platforms have become stricter with free speech. Twitter has Twitter rules, Reddit has content policy, YouTube has community guidelines, and Facebook has community standards. There are hundreds of rules on Facebook, all of which fall into different subsections of its policies, and most of which have exceptions and gray areas. These include, for example, policy on hate speech, targeted violence, bullying, and porn, as well as rules against spam, false news, and copyright infringement. Facebook has a policy team made up of lawyers, public relations professionals, ex-public policy intellectuals, and crisis management experts that make these rules. In Facebook's case, moderators act or decide not to act on content that is surfaced by artificial intelligence or by users who report posts that they believe violate the rules. Artificial intelligence is very good at identifying porn, spam, and fake accounts. There's also a risk and response team that is responsible for girls and women sharing stories of their sexual abuse, harassment, and assault experiences. Facebook has a revenge porn policy and recently created software tool which asks people to be cautious of uploading nude photos of themselves so that they can be used to block anyone from uploading that specific photo in the future. Facebook says AI tools detect have been very successful at identifying spam, nudity, and hate speech to create yes or no policies for everything. Facebook already tries to know exactly the parameters of what it allows on its platform, down to necessarily precise level. The second question asks, how does this compare to users' interpretation of their experiences with content moderation? My response was, this compares users to interpreting with their experiences with content moderation because big social companies like Google and YouTube pay other tech companies to moderate and to protect their website content at all costs from future technological complications. Additionally, Google and YouTube have rules and regulations that can be disobeyed, but the content moderators try to fight against it and prevent any possible issues from happening again. How to successfully moderate user-generated content is one of the most labor-intensive and mind-boggling complex logistical problems. Its 2 billion users make millions of posts per day in more than 100 languages, and Facebook human content moderators are asked to review more than 10 million potential rule-breaking posts per week. Facebook aims to do this with an error rate of less than 1% and seeks to review all user-reported content within 24 hours. Facebook's constant stir of content moderation related problems come in many different flavors. There are failures of policy, failures of messaging, and favors to predict the darkest impulses of human nature. The thing that makes Facebook problems so difficult is its massive size. It doesn't just moderate or decide where the line is for content. It is clearly communicate the line to moderators around the globe and defend the line to its 2 billion users. Facebook's content moderation policies are and always have been guided by a sense of realistic. Reviewing and classifying the speech of billions of people is seen internally as a logistics problem that is only viable if streamlined and standardized across the globe. Facebook's goal for objective moderation is to have a set of rules covering every possible human remark or expression on site to eliminate potential for error from moderators. This means content should be able to flow through a series of yes or no or multiple choice questions. The answers to those questions will determine whether or not a post is removed. Mark Zuckerberg, who's the CEO of Facebook, says the ultimate solution for content moderation is in the future, in which people in different countries, either explicit or through their activity on the site, explain the types of content that they want to see, and then Facebook's artificial intelligence will ensure that they are only shown things that appeal for their sensibilities. He describes this as a large-scale democratic process to determine standards with AI to enforce them. Now, the third question is, do you believe platforms would benefit from the educational module that Wes proposed at the end of her article? Why or not? I think it is. I do believe platforms would benefit from the educational model that Wes proposes because some of kinds of the interventions that these users are calling for would be extremely resourceful to deploy at scale. And there are differing ideals of which kinds of content platforms should allow maybe ultimately be incompatible. But it may be worth considering what content moderation system designed to educate and engage with users as community members might look like. Simple design interventions like providing more detail and clarity about content moderation process or including explanations of the policy violated when notifying a user of content takedown would go a long way toward encouraging users to better police themselves. And importantly, this could ultimately mean reducing the amount of content platforms have to moderate rather than increasing it. Developing a different standpoint from which to the position of users of social media platforms could be a generated space for content moderation system to develop and ultimately could paint and point a better picture and for more alternative ways of thinking about what content moderation and indeed platforms themselves are designed for. That is it, everybody. Thank you for your time.